I have this envelope and I'm like, oh, who's this from? And I open it up and there's a picture of Jimin. And for the teeniest, tiniest moment, like millisecond, I thought Jimin sent me a Valentine's Day card.
There's a
Because
30% chance he did.
30% chance.
I'm Leilani.
And I'm Cassie.
And we're just two middle-aged fangirls who love geeking out about our favorite things.
K-pop and K-pop adjacent entertainment.
Join us monthly for discussions, activities, and games.
We're rating this show PG-13-ish.
It's usually pretty innocent, but you may occasionally hear some foul language and mature topics discussed.
If this all sounds good to you, then grab your light stick and come along with us, because we're K-popping around town.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Thank you for listening to K-Popping Around Town. I really have a struggle, Cassie, I need to talk to you about.
Okay.
I'm running out of creative ways to say hello. I feel like at the beginning of every episode, I'm like, hey, how are you? Greetings and salutations. Welcome back. I don't know what to say.
I think that's okay. I think it doesn't have to be creative. Although I did think it would be cool. It's fun to see what countries people are listening to in. And I did think it'd be fun to say hello in the language that's the most commonly spoken language of every country that we have people listening in.
Shut the front door, because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, what if we start each episode with saying hello in a different language? But then I was like, I don't know. So I love that idea.
Okay. We're going to start doing that. Starting next episode, we'll start saying hello in a different language every episode. I'm so excited.
Yes, yay! Because I really struggle with the hi. Hey, how you doing?
Okay. It'll be great. So This is part 2 of our episode on parasocial relationships. So if you haven't listened to part 1, you might want to do that first, because that will make this make more sense. We defined what a parasocial relationship is, told some stories of how they play a role in our own lives, and gave a little bit of history of the research and, how it's presented in the media and our culture.
Yeah, really interesting stuff. We got pretty deep, but we also had a lot of fun. Lots of laughing.
Yes. So we'll get right into it. It'll be the same today. So parasocial relationships in the world of K-pop. My interpretation, and anybody can tell me if they feel otherwise. It seems to me that parasocial relationships are part of the K-pop business model. And I know it's not unique to K-pop. A lot of people credit Taylor Swift's initial success with how much she used social media. But all the content we get with things like Weverse Lives and the media training that the idols go through, it does seem that they very intentionally make connections with fans. Things like that, every fandom has a name. There's a lot of very intentional cultivating of the connection. For better or for worse, I personally feel, for so many things that we talked about in the last episode, that a lot of it is for better. But there can be problems, which we'll get into. Now, a qualifier of a parasocial relationship is that you don't have access. One thing we didn't talk about last time is that parasocial relationship is not necessarily yes or no, black or white dichotomy. It is a continuum. And I think that's interesting to think about with K-pop, because you do have some level of access. You can be on a live and type a comment or question, and the idols do read those and respond. There's no guarantee. I mean, because there's so many people, they are not going to respond to most of them. But if they do respond to your question or comment, then you have just had an interaction with them that in that moment is not one-sided. So that's not a parasocial moment, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So that's where it gets a little bit interesting, and the continuum comes in according to the researcher Gail Stever. If you have done enough fan signs where your idol recognizes you, you're kind of in a new space that's somewhere in between a parasocial relationship and actual. You still don't have an actual relationship with them. You know, it's not like you're going out to coffee and having conversations, but they recognize you. So you're kind of in this new space. And this is all by design to keep you feeling connected and buying albums. And buying enough albums that you can go back to these fan signs. This is all intentional. And so we also talked both directly and by example about our delulu.
Mhm.
And I would like to say that this does not come out of thin air. What Leilani and I are talking about when we say delulu, which is just a fun, whimsical, and I said this in the last episode, I'll say it again just in case you didn't listen. We're using this in a fun, silly way. We're not talking about actual pathological delusions. I am always open to adjusting my vocabulary if anybody has adopted a different word that they feel is more appropriate. But for lack of better words, we're using the word delulu. This does not come out of thin air. In my personal opinion, it is a stretch of the imagination based on something that is real. So, for example, if I am at a BTS concert, say on August 27th, 2026,
Just randomly. Uh-huh.
and my bias, Jimin, says, "I love you, ARMY," and I am in that audience, he is talking to me as part of the group ARMY. That is real. That is a real interaction. I believe 100% that he does love his fans' ARMY the way I love my clients of my business. I believe that is real. Now, what's a little bit less real is when I'm having a hard day and Leilani sends me a GIF of Jimin and says something like, "Jimin hopes you feel better soon." You know, that's not as real. Okay, it's not real because Jimin doesn't know me as an individual.
Mhm.
Still, I would like to argue that it's based on something real because I think if somebody said, "Hey, Jimin, you have a fan who's really sad today. What do you think of this situation?" I
Mhm.
think he would say, "Aw, that's too bad. I hope they feel better soon."
I'm sure he would.
And I think it's similar to the way we relate to animals. So, like, I am a dog walker, right? So I show up at a house and the dog is so excited because we have this long history of fun, good things happening when I show up. We have a connection. This is real. What's less real is when I'm texting with a client and they say something like, "Winston is really excited to see you next Thursday." We both know that Winston did not use human language to talk about something that is happening in the future.
Mm.
But we also both know that when I show up next Thursday, Winston is going to be really excited. So we are acting a little delulu by stretching by using our imaginations to stretch the truth is the way I interpret it. Now, Leilani's going to start to talk about, does this ever go too far? Because what I described, I think, is just making life colorful, making, mundane life more fun.
Anybody that's known me for 5 minutes knows that I am very passionate and assertive about how I feel. So I will try to just take a mini step onto the soapbox as I go through this because I do feel very passionate about it. In these discussions, we've tried to send the message of balance and letting this be something that adds to your life and doesn't hurt yourself or anybody else around you or the artists themselves. But can it go too far? This is not based on evidence or research. This is just anecdotal evidence based on my perception of social media. But does it go too far? Do we expect, sticking with BTS, do we expect them to be perfect? They're never supposed to say a bad word. They're not supposed to be doing anything that is not consistent with an idea, with this unrealistic ideal. In real life, humans are flawed. Humans make mistakes. They say the wrong things. They do the wrong things. They get in bad moods. I swear like a sailor. We have these moments of vulnerability and weakness. But I think from what I've seen in the K-pop community, at least thus far in the past couple of years, there is such a thing as this cancel culture that we also are familiar with in the United States. And I think that really limits the ability to grow. You should be able to, as we should be able to in our real lives, if we make a mistake, we should be able to own that mistake, acknowledge it, and then people should have grace and patience with us to learn from that mistake and grow as humans. We're going to continue that path. But I think the way that it's set up now, there is no room for that. They either are perfect all the time or some people just hate them. Like some people just really go down a path. And one of the examples, I preface this by saying, this is not okay, right? And Yoongi took responsibility for it. What he did was not okay. What he did was illegal based on the laws in South Korea. And, he whatever happened with the legal process there, I'm assuming took place. But I don't know if he was actually arrested. Cassie, do you know if he was arrested or just ticketed? I'm not sure. But when he was doing his civil service while the rest of the members were in the military, he was riding home from like a bar or restaurant or something. He was very close to where he was staying. And so he rode his electric scooter, an electric scooter, mind you. He was not driving some like 10-ton vehicle, which again, not excusing the behavior, but just setting the context. And he got pulled over, arrested, whatever, for driving under the influence of an electric scooter. If this were to happen, depending on who the person is, because we have our own issues in the United States, this wouldn't even be a thing probably, right? If this were some celebrity or some, if you're a certain color, certain class, probably, you would just get like a, hey, knock it off, don't do that, right? He went on immediately and apologized, like this lengthy statement about how he realized that he disappointed fans, and he owned it from the word go. And people started sending funeral flowers to Hive and Big Hit headquarters to ask for him to be fired from BTS, which is absolutely ridiculous. Like he didn't, in the range of things that we've seen celebrities be guilty of, like this is not, again, not okay, not excusing what he did. He made a bad choice. We all make bad choices, right? And it appeared that he wasn't given the space to do exactly what he did. So I think sometimes it does go too far. And I think another issue is just in general, some fans feeling like you should behave one way, and when you don't behave that way, I'm going to get angry at you. So Jungkook just had a live, I don't remember, maybe a month and a half ago, where he was just getting frustrated because people wanted to put him in this box. Like he's the maknae of the group. He's the youngest member. And I am old enough to be his mother. But I do feel very protective of Jungkook, and I do have my own certain emotions about some of his more sensual work and some of the music videos and the pictures that have been out. But I'm not going to hate on him for making those choices. He still, despite however I think of him in my head, he is an adult. He can make his own decisions on how he wants to present himself artistically. And so he gets frustrated because, again, these are human beings with their own rights and emotions. And another thing I could probably go on and on and on and on about, but I'll try to keep it short. One of the most frustrating things in general I've seen on lives from other artists from other countries, not just South Korea, is when they're on a live and people are like, speak English. I think it is such, I think it's a very American thing to go to when like they're visiting, like why doesn't everybody speak English? I hope I don't get a ton of hate for this, but the United States is not the center of the universe. It is not expected that everybody on the planet should be speaking English. And if you are choosing to stan or be a fan of a group from another country, spoiler alert, they might speak that language that is native to them. And if you want to understand them, learn Korean. Like I think it's just like goes to this idea that we have some type of ownership over them and can have the ability to dictate their lives. And this no dating rule. We had talked about in episode 1. If Jin is my alt bias, if Jin came out next year or this year or whatever and said, guess what? I'm dating somebody. We're going to get married. I want to have kids. First, I would say, how dare you? You were supposed to marry me. But no, in all reality, I would just be like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. And also, I'm so grateful to this person that chose to love you because I love you as a fan and want the best for you. I have no say in what you do with your personal life. I have desires. I hope you continue to make music. I hope you continue to tour. And if he decided to change that, I would be disappointed, but I would be in no way in my head going, how dare you do that to me? Like I don't have any ownership over the decisions that he makes. So my point in all this, I think that that's some of the darker sides of what we've seen in this, where people feel that they have any say in what an idol does, says, dresses, anything like that. And so it really is about the balance.
I can really hear your passion right now. So everyone can hear it, and I can see it too, because I can see you. But we even if you're listening on YouTube, we have very intentionally made this a audio only show. So Leilani has mentioned this several times. The two of us, are always talking about the both and. We're big believers in the idea that two things can be true at the same time, even if it seems like they contradict each other. And I don't remember why I just mentioned that, but it will come up again in a minute. So I will move on to my next thing. Okay, the no dating rule. So I do want to acknowledge, like Leilani just said, we are not Korean, so I'm sure there are cultural nuances that we are not aware of. And I want to try to speak my personal experience, my interpretation of these things, and be respectful. I try to be very mindful of how I talk about these things. When I think about the no dating rule, it was very surprising to learn about that, because I'm like, don't all celebrities have lots of people in their lives? But when I think about that's interesting, I feel like it undermines my imagination. Not only do I see it being a problem for the idols, but I'm like, it's not necessary, because in my real life, as I mentioned in the last episode, I am very much married to my husband, Josh. Yet somehow, in my imagination, I still manage to be very married to a one Mr. Kim Nam Jun. And so I imagine if I'm able to do this, if I were to find out that he was also married in real life, I'm pretty sure I would still manage to be married to him in my imagination. I don't think that would change anything. Now, here's where the both and comes in. I do want to acknowledge that we all have our feelings. I'm a huge believer in the idea that feelings do not hurt anybody else. Only your actions and words do. So it's okay if you have like a little bit of feeling of disappointment, jealousy, as long as you're not acting on that in a way that is hurtful to anybody. Like, whatever you feel is okay. The honest truth is if and when that news comes out, I might feel a little disappointed. I might feel a little jealous initially. And that's okay. I'm not going to do anything that would hurt anybody. I'm just going to kind of like have my feelings and then go on with my life and keep having my imaginary marriage in my head because the both and. And so that's the other thing. Not only does the idea that they cannot be married, they cannot be in a relationship because if I'm understanding correctly, one of the reasons for the no dating rule is us fans are supposed to be able to imagine that we could have the opportunity to be with them. If I'm understanding correctly, that's one of the reasons for it. And so not only do I feel that undermines my ability to imagine, but it also undermines my ability to cope with disappointment, which I think is a big issue in general. Like, I don't know if it's a human nature thing or a societal thing, but I feel like that pops up in like all areas of life. Like, you can't do this thing. We can't say this thing because you might be disappointed. I can be disappointed. Like, I can handle that. Like, it might suck for a little bit, but I'll be okay. So yeah, that's what I had to say about that. One of the last negative aspects that we wanted to touch on is something that you had mentioned earlier, is if your parasocial relationship replaces real life relationships, then obviously that can be problematic. Now, I do want to make we've talked a lot already, so I won't get too into it, but I want to make a little caveat that we should be careful with the language we use when talking about this, because sometimes, as we've already mentioned, we've each given examples, the parasocial relationship can kind of fill a gap of a real life relationship that we might not have in either a season of our life or a moment in our day. So my personal example is in the first episode, I talked about in those moments where everyone in my house is upset and we all have dysregulated nervous systems and are all triggering everybody else. I go upstairs and I watch a video of Magic Shop, and the BTS members are looking at the camera, making finger hearts and kissy faces. That is very parasocial relationship by design. They're connecting with me. In that moment, I can't get my needs met through my real life relationships. So for 5 minutes, I let my parasocial relationships meet my needs, and then I take that back to my family and I be the best mom and wife I can be in that moment. So I just want a little caveat that sometimes it can be the healthy thing to kind of use those to fill in the gap. But obviously, if you have real life relationships that you let go because you're spending all your time on these YouTube videos, then that it is not a healthy thing.
So on that vein, we're going to talk about what's the difference between a fan, or as we call ourselves, stans, or sassing. So if I'm mispronouncing that, please let me know. I did look it up. I tried my best. A sasaeng or a sasaeng fan is an intensely obsessive fan who stalks or invades the private lives of K-pop idols or any idol, not just from from South Korea, derived from Korean for private life, quote unquote. These individuals engage in intrusive, often illegal actions such as stalking, hacking, or harassing family members to gain attention or proximity. So I've actually heard this as in use more broadly, almost as anti-fans or people that will just one example it comes to mind is an idol coming through an airport. And in South Korea, it's very different. But Cassie and I have adopted a Chinese actor and singer named Zizou. And he was mobbed by the people at the airport because it was just a different setup. And those to me are Sasangs, because if I saw Jin, I would probably pass out. But once I was brought back to life, once I was resuscitated, I would give him space. Like I would never think or presume to like rush him or to try to like invade his personal space. So I've also seen it in that capacity. So some of the examples of that type of negative behavior include stalking, privacy invasion, harassment, information gathering, which includes purchasing or selling private information. I know poor Jungkook has had people come to his home more than once. Like, it's just inconceivable to me. So some terms that are related to this are stalker fan, obsessive fan, or an anti-fan. So sometimes the sasang and anti-fan cross over because they both exhibit extreme intrusive behaviors. So these are some examples of when it goes too far. Either when you like, you think this is all on a spectrum, right? So you can go from like being just a casual fan to all the way over to being a sasang where you feel like you have the right to invade their personal and private life. The way that I try to look at it is just like myself, I'm not a celebrity by any means, but I tend to be a very private person and only let people in that I trust. So if I trust you with that information, that is a privilege that I am giving to you to say, this is a piece of my private self that I'm willing to share and expose with you. And I feel like it's the same way with these celebrities. That's the way I look at it. Whatever they choose to share with us, I'm just happy for it. I don't feel like I have the right to any more information than that which they're comfortable to give us. So I think if you look at it that way, that's just how I personally see it. I don't have any right to their personal information whatsoever. I don't. Now, if they choose to do it, great, awesome. Thank you for making that connection. But I think that's where Sasangs feel like they have the right to go and do this, which can obviously be very toxic.
So it seems that some of this sussing behavior might be considered part of celebrity worship syndrome, which unfortunately gets confused with parasocial relationship. But this is where that admiration shifts into obsessive fascination and preoccupation, which can be described as addiction. And there are 3 levels that have been defined: entertainment and social interests, which is generally thought of to be what we've mostly described here today: harmless, fun; borderline pathological interest, and then, oh, sorry, I skipped one: intense and personal interest, which is, kind of a level up; and then borderline pathological interest, which is the really problematic behavior that comes from an actual mental illness. And so there's an assessment that was made by a few social scientists that I actually took, and I landed in the entertainment and social interest phase or category. So that's the fun and games. It was interesting is it really highlighted a lot of the questions were based around, do you find connection with other fans? Like, that was a huge theme. So that's where the social interest piece comes in. And so what we talked so much about in the last episode is a positive can be that your love for your celebrity can be something that you bond with people in real life with. Now, the questions that I think lead to the assessment of the borderline pathological interest is there were questions like, my celebrity and I have a secret code that we communicate with. Now, that threw me for a minute because at first I was like, Borahay? Is that a secret code? But I was like, no, that's not like...
Let me know. I can't even say it. Laminotella? Liminotella. What did Jim say?
La Chimolala.
La Chimolala. Yeah.
Yeah. Threw me for a minute, but I was like, no, like those are kind of like jokes in the fandom. They're online. Anybody can look them up and learn them. Like this is like they're speaking about like actual delusions. And then things like one of the big questions was if I met my celebrity and they asked me to do something illegal for them, I would do it. So like obviously my answer was a 2 thumbs down. If your answer is 2 thumbs up, you're probably going to land in the borderline personality. So those are, an example of how the scale is used. And if I'm understanding correctly, the people who made the scale were trying to like really prove how problematic this was. But then another group of researchers went and gave this test to fans like at a concert, and they scored the same as when it was given to just general population. So it really showed everything that we've been talking about so far, that generally speaking, parasocial relationships can be a very healthy, normal part of life. Now, all that being said, it is important to make sure that you are keeping that balance, like Leilani has mentioned. For me personally, I do have a pretty obsessive personality, and I can get really hyper fixated on things. So I do actually have to sometimes make a very intentional effort to make sure that I'm spending some time thinking about other things and on other interests. So I want to share I have 2 stories I want to share about how I do this. But first, I want to ask Leilani, do you want to tell us like super quickly what some of your other interests are besides K-pop?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head that it's all about balance. So I love reading, but I haven't really picked up a book and like stayed with it for a long time. I like the idea of reading. I like buying books. I love to travel and learn about different cultures. I'm a big fan of all kinds of Asian dramas, specifically BLs for all my yaoi girls out there, or yaoi people, I should say. I love to eat good food, and I love spending time with my friends and my kid. I love cats. So like all that kind of stuff. When I look at like a pie chart of how I spend my time, K-pop has become like inherent into what I listen to, but it's not my sole focus. So I have a lot of varied interests. It is a big part of my life and a big part of my budget, but it's not the only thing.
Yeah. So I have a lot of interests too. And one of the reasons K-pop has become so huge in my life is because it is a hobby I'm able to fit in to my current stage of life, because a lot of my interests, a lot of the things I used to spend time on are like acting in plays, horseback riding. I used to do a lot of writing and go to these writers groups. I do not have time for those things anymore. So K-pop has been a really good mom hobby for me, because I can just, watch 2 videos before I get out of bed in the morning, listen all day. But the other, like I've had like another good mom hobby for me has been watching gymnastics videos. That was my big thing before K-pop. Was I watched a lot of gymnastics and listened to podcasts about it, and followed the different, not followed in real life, learned about the different athletes.
She was not stalking anybody,
No.
just to be clear.
Followed along their careers. And so That's one of the stories I'm going to tell. Well, I'll do that a second. Early in my K-pop days, I was thinking about BTS like constantly. And I was like, okay, I need to have a day off. Like I really recognize in myself, like this is, again, it wasn't outwardly harming anything in my life. I was going to work. I was taking care of my family. Like everything was okay. But I just was kind of like, maybe it's too much. So I did what was called Abstinence Day, which I still do occasionally. I've sent you a message saying tomorrow's Abstinence Day. If you send me any K-pop videos, I will not be watching them tomorrow.
Right.
I'm only listening to non-K-pop music. I'm not watching any videos. The first time I did Abstinence Day was maybe like 2 or 3 months into getting into BTS. It was honestly terrible. Because even though like it's not interfering with my life, I'm going on with my life. What can happen when I get really obsessed is I don't want to do anything else. So I get really grumpy about needing to do other things, which is why I implemented Abstinence Day to kind of like break that a little bit. And by the end of the day, I'm only slightly exaggerating when I say my family was begging me to just watch a music video already because I was grumpy, but that's why I thought it was important. And then I've also done, but I haven't done that a lot. And these days, I don't feel a need for it as much because I'm not in the honeymoon phase anymore. Like,
Right.
the obsession is there, but it's like calmed down a little bit. But in those early days, I also used to do what I called microdosing day, where I would allow myself just 1 or 2 videos in the whole day. That was amazing. I have a very clear memory of sitting in my car and watching the mic drop music video. And that was like all I got for the whole day. And it was incredible. Such a high. I highly recommend microdosing day. It was incredible. But so yeah, as that vein, sometimes I make a very intentional effort to engage in my other interests. But sometimes the algorithms or any other part of life just makes that really hard. And a pretty hilarious example is in that first few months of BTS, I said to myself one day, I'm really obsessed. I should spend some time on my other interests. I used to watch gymnastics all the time. So I go to YouTube and I type in Simone Biles. And the video that comes up is from the tour that every 4 years after the Olympics, the gymnasts go on this tour across the country where they put on just a really fun show where they do like skills and stuff similar to the competition, but they're not competing. It's just for fun. And they have like fun costumes and music. So there's this scene where like 10 gymnasts are taking turns going down a runway type thing, doing flips. And it's to music. And guess what song is playing?
Which one?
Dynamite.
You can't get away from it.
I had such good intentions of taking a break from BTS, engaging in other interests, but the universe had other plans. I was supposed to just be listening to BTS.
That's hilarious. You can't get that butter is how I got wrangled in.
Yeah, you couldn't get away from it.
Now that we've talked about some of the heavier stuff, what are some fun delulu stories that we have to share? I will talk about my husband. So I don't have K-pop boyfriends. I have K-pop husbands. And I only currently have 2. So they are in this order: Jin, Kim Seok-jin from BTS, and Mr. Ten Lee. That's his Korean name. I can't pronounce his Thai name. He's in Wavy, and he's also in Super M. He did just leave SM Entertainment, but those are my 2 husbands. Now, anybody below that category, Cassie, does not meet husband criteria. They just become one of my boys in the group. So there's a lot of those, but there's really only 2 husbands. So it's Jin and Ten.
Okay. Love it. So I have a story of like a pretty delulu story. During our first year of friendship, you sent me a Valentine's Day card,
Mm-hmm.
but you did not put a return address. So I have this envelope and I'm like, oh, who's this from? And I open it up and there's a picture of Jimin. And for the teeniest, tiniest moment, like millisecond, I thought Jimin sent me a Valentine's Day card.
There's a 30% chance he did.
30% chance. And also, like, I didn't recognize her handwriting then. But so for like a teeny tiny second, I really thought this. And then it was like very quickly, my logical brain was trying to catch up. And I was working through scenarios of how this happened. So I was like, okay, Jimin sent this through Weavers. Everybody with an Army membership got one. And I was like, no, this doesn't look like something that came from Weavers. Did I join a fan club? I joined a fan club that I forgot about. This came from some sort of fan club. And so it's not from Jimin. It's from the president of the fan club. What? I do not remember this fan club. And then I'm like, oh, there's a letter. And then I finally realized it's from Leilani. And I mean, all this happened so fast. It's not like I spent the day thinking Jimin sent me a Valentine's Day card, but there was a moment. There's a teeny, tiny little moment. And it was still like really exciting and fun. Like I didn't know yet because we were new friends. You're really good at Valentine's Day. You always send something really fun.
I do.
So, but that was very silly. And
well, I hope the disappointment wasn't too big.
No, it was. It wasn't disappointing. It made sense.
Yes.
And it was very exciting. This is like the kind of community building that is so much fun.
It is.
So this was a big topic. We could go on, but we won't. We will stop here. If anybody has your own silly story you want to share or an interesting article you've read, send us an email or share it through Instagram. We'll put the resources that we used when doing our research in the show notes. And thank you so much for following along the conversation.
Thank you for listening to this. We could and have gone on and on about this kind of stuff. I just want to end with have fun, find joy, but have balance on this. It is a great resource for us, and we hope it's a great resource for you too. Just have balance and remember everybody's human.
Yes, that's a great way to end. Everybody's human.
All right. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Just kidding. We're back.
We missed you guys so much.
We actually ran out of time when we were recording, so we are back 2 weeks later to just wrap up the last few things. So I'm just going to make one last note on our topic. Leilani is going to walk us through our community corner, and then we're going to say goodbye for real this time.
Maybe. No,
Maybe. No promises. So throughout these 2 episodes, we've been talking about how parasocial relationships inherently are harmless, as are all the silly things we do and say and think about our biases. But I do want to acknowledge that there could be people listening who do feel that they relate more to the obsessive, addictive side of things that comes more with the celebrity worship syndrome that we touched on just briefly. And so we just want to say, if that is you, if that is something that you relate to or something that you feel like someone in your life might relate to, there are resources out there. And I couldn't actually find as much like dedicated to this specific topic as I was hoping to. But in the show notes, we're just going to include a couple of articles with information and just some general mental health resources. Psychology Today, where local therapists all over the country post their profiles, and that's how way a lot of people find their real life, online, or in-person mental health support. So If you feel like you need more support in this or any area, check out the show notes.
And now on to our community corner. This is our June episode, and June is, among many other things, Gay Pride Month, Queer Pride Month, however you want to, pick the most inclusive term as possible, Pride Month. And so we thought it was fitting to feature an organization that does work in this space. So this month's feature is the Trevor Project. The Trevor Project is the leading suicide prevention and crisis intervention nonprofit organization for LGBTQ plus young people. They provide information and support to LGBTQ plus young people 24/7 all year round. And they do this through crisis service, advocacy, research, peer support, and public education. This is a community that is very, very, very close to my heart, and I know Cassie's heart too. So we wanted to call them out and really hold up what they're doing as a wonderful example of a great community organization that is helping a very specific segment of queer youth that I think need extra attention and support. So we'll put a link to their information. You feel free to donate or support them all year round, but with Pride Month coming up, it would be a really great way to help support the work they do.
Yes, definitely check them out. And because one last super random thing, we realized that the title of this episode was kind of a tease. If there are any stray kids, Lino biases listening, feel free to email us, Instagram us your favorite Lino moments, and we will share them on our socials. So anybody finishing this episode in the future, after somebody has shared their favorite videos, can then go to K-Poppin' Around Town on Instagram and find all the great Lino stuff.
We want to share the Lino-ness.
Yes, we need to share the Lino-ness far and wide.
Yes.
So thank you so much for K-Poppin' Around Town with us, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.